practicing this morning, I was thinking a lot about this idea of flexible principles over rigid beliefs. Now, before I kind of dive deep into explaining that idea, let me just speak practically. Practically, yesterday, I was having trouble focusing on the concepts that I was practicing. I was trying to practice going in between a minor sound and a major sound, and I kept playing all this other stuff that I was hearing in my head that was distracting me from practicing the thing that I intended on practicing. So what I did is I used a metronome and I told myself, okay, for two measures, I'm going to do the minor thing. For two measures, I'm going to do the major thing. And the metronome really helped me focus on what I was trying to practice. Now today, I thought to myself, oh, the metronome was so helpful yesterday. Let me just immediately start with the metronome. And I was trying to practice like a fretboard thing, like really kind of understand, like getting my shapes more comfortable across all positions. And I found that the metronome was distracting me while I was digging into the fretboard thing because I wasn't good enough to do the fretboard thing in time yet. So the metronome was asking me to do something that was like too difficult to get effective practice. So I turned the metronome off and I practiced the thing out of time, which was appropriate for what I was working on. And I got better quality practice because of it. So the whole idea is like yesterday, I practiced with the metronome and it helped. And today, I was practicing with the metronome and it wasn't helping, and I turned it off, and then that helped, and that made it better. So if I had the rigid belief that I must always practice with a metronome in order to have quality practice, then it would keep me from actually getting quality practice, right? But the flexible principle of the metronome is helpful in certain circumstances, and the metronome is unhelpful in other certain circumstances. Having flexible beliefs in that way really helps me be able to make the best decision about how to practice in the moment. Because sometimes I'm practicing different concepts, and sometimes there are factors outside of my control that don't allow me to practice the same way every day. So even if I'm practicing the same exact concept every day for like a couple months, like maybe the night before something happened in my neighborhood that was outside of my control to where I was waking up throughout the night, every 2 hours, and I got really bad sleep, and it affected my ability to be able to focus while I was practicing, which would mean that however I practiced the day before was probably going to be too much of a challenge for that day, right? Things are always changing. Things outside of our control are changing. And when we have these rigid beliefs of like, my practice must be this way, I must make progress every day when I practice, I must practice with a metronome, I must practice all of my scales every day, I must practice all of my repertoire every day, like these super rigid beliefs, it's not helpful. And so the thing that I was thinking about is how rigid things tend to break, but flexible things don't break as often under tension, right? And life is going to put tension on us in general. Maybe you have a family. You probably have a career. You have other goals that you're pursuing. And life is going to put a lot of tension on us, is going to give us lots of challenges. So when we have that tension upon us, we want to have these we want to study the maybe it's inaccurate to say flexible principles. It's more so that the principles are very much stationary. And the way that we want to interact with those principles in a flexible manner. So the principle of the metronome helps me when I'm practicing something that is in time, like that principle is always the same. Um, and the principle of when I'm not good enough to practice something in time, then the metronome isn't going to help me be able to practice that thing. So my engagement with the principles, being flexible, I find that to be really helpful. Instead of having these really rigid ways that we engage with these things. So a common occurrence, the reason that this is so important is because tons of people stop practicing because of their rigid beliefs. Like they'll have some sort of a practice regiment, and then one day they'll sit down to practice, and something will happen, and they will observe that occurrence and say to themselves, this should not be this way. Whatever it is about going on with the guitar practice. Let's say, for example, you've been working on a song for 5 days in a row. And the first 4 days you make progress, learning more of the song. And then the 5th day, you're not making any progress. Maybe you even forgot the progress that you had made over the past 4 days. And you sit down and you think to yourself, this should not be the case. I should not have forgotten what I've worked so hard to be able to accomplish. But the thing is that like we can't control what we remember or what we forget. We can't control how well we sleep at night. We can't control the other things that might have your attention that are stressing you out and distracting you. So to have this like rigid belief of I must remember everything and I must make progress every day while I'm practicing, like reality is going to prove to you that is just not the case. And when you have that very rigid belief of my practice must be this way, the first day that the practice isn't that way, it's going to break you. And you're going to put the guitar down and you're going to be like, I'll do something else for a while. I'll come back to the guitar when I'm feeling better. And then you never feel better. Or you very rarely feel better. And that's part of the reason why you haven't been making progress with your instrument, is because you have these very rigid beliefs instead of the principle of if I practice every day, which is something that I can control, right? We can control whether or not we practice. We can't control how much progress we make, but we can control whether or not we practice. So sticking to the principle of if I practice every day, then over time, I'm going to get better. Like, it's inevitable that I'm going to get better eventually. It's not going to be a straight line. It's not going to get better every single day. But not but. I didn't mean to use. Using the word but was inaccurate in that moment. I think what I would like to end with in conclusion is that we all have the goal of making progress on the guitar, getting better at this instrument because we're passionate about music. And if we can scan our minds for these rigid beliefs that we have of how practicing must be a certain way or how the guitar must be a certain way, and if we can replace those with much more reasonable, a much more flexible approach. It's not that we have flexible beliefs. It's just that I'm trying to express this in a way that is very clear and non-technical. Let's try this. Look for those very rigid beliefs and we can replace those rigid beliefs with flexible beliefs. I think that is accurate enough to say. So instead of the belief of I must make practice every day, you can have the flexible belief of I'd really like to make practice every day, but some days I'd really like to make progress every day. So you have the rigid belief of I must make progress every day, or you can have the flexible belief of I would really like to make progress every day with my practicing. And some days I'm going to make progress, and some days I'm not going to make progress. And that's the way it is. Like this is the wonderful journey that we're on. And if you want to be kind of sinister about it and competitive, you can think to yourself that every time you come across one of these challenges, where you are frustrated and you have this rigid belief and you don't feel like doing the work of replacing that rigid belief with a more flexible belief, just remember that everybody goes through these experiences, and if you can work through it, that is going to put you ahead of all your friends and everybody else who's playing. Like if you really want to be the best guitar player in your friend group, then do this stuff and you're going to be better than everybody else. If you think competitively, sometimes stuff like that resonates with me, but sometimes I'm not super competitive. Anyway, those are my thoughts for today. I had that thought while I was practicing this morning, so I thought I would share it with all of you wonderful people here on YouTube. If you appreciate, the rambling and the learning of guitar and human behavior, definitely like the video, subscribe to my channel so that you can check out more of this stuff. And if you'd like to work with me more personally, I do teach a guitar program that you could be a part of. We accomplish fretboard fluency in 2 months. We do a bunch of other stuff as well, and it's pretty fantastic. So there's lots of other videos on my YouTube channel that you can check out that kind of explain the program a little more. And I will end by playing some stuff because not only can I talk, but I can also play guitar. So here's some guitar playing, and thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you later. Yeah. Alrighty. You know, not my like most proud improvisation, but here we are, just like uncut, off the cuff, playing some music for you, which maybe that's a little rare on YouTube and Instagram. Maybe not a lot of people just kind of play whatever it is. There's a lot of composed things. I like composed music too. That's not a slight at all. I'm just curious if playing a little more like raw, off the cuff, total improv, if that might resonate a little bit with some people. It's possible. We'll see. Alrighty, enjoy your practice today, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.